every day I come back to the team, I'm like, oh, you guys, I was testing last night. This thing, like I'm going nuts because it's so fun, and the world is just, it's a lot.
Hey, you guys. Welcome to the developer interview here at PSVR without Parole. My name is Brian Paul, and with me this week is the founder and creative and art lead over at 17-Bit for their upcoming game Song in the Smoke. Jake, coming all the way from Kyoto, Japan, correct?
That's right.
Whew, man. What are you doing over there?
Kyoto's the best, man. Kyoto's one of the best cities on the planet, and I've always just loved it here. And yeah, it's a great place to run a game studio. You got Nintendo down the street. There's a bunch of smaller game devs, a lot of indie stuff here, a lot of expat game devs here. Actually, like an incredibly huge community. Everybody's friends. We have a great time. It's just an amazing city to live in. I think it's one of the nicest cities on the planet. So why not?
Nice. Well, when all this settles down a little bit, when the world calms down, I'd love to see what Kyoto's all about, man. I might have to come visit you.
It's very green here.
Very green.
It's very green. There's moss and plants everywhere. I mean, it's just green. It's like overwhelmingly green.
But tell me a little bit about 17-Bit. How many people are on the team?
There's about 15 of us, and then we've got a handful of contractors too. Most of us are located in the heart of the city here. Our producer recently had a baby and moved back to England, so he's doing the remote thing from there. But as we're all online anyway, it kind of works out. I mean, the timing could be better, but we make it happen.
Nice. And is this, I know a lot of teams are frequently working on multiple projects at the same time. Is everyone full force over there on Song in the Smoke? Or do you have some other things?
We tend to focus on one thing at a time as much as possible. We're not a huge team, and it's a big game, and it pretty much requires all hands on deck. So, of course, we're kind of tossing around stuff for the next thing. We have to get that moving at some point. But until this thing is out the door, we're going to be pretty much in the zone.
And it does have a kind of a vague release date of 2021.
It's coming this summer. It'll be coming this summer. Yeah, we're close. We're close. We don't want to announce the date yet because we've got 3 platforms that we're trying to ship at the same time.
Right.
And if anything knocks loose right now, we're not going to make our date. So we're not going to announce just yet, but it's soon. It's definitely soon.
That's insane. Summer is, as far as PSVR is concerned, at least, summer is starting to get absolutely jam-packed with big releases. Some of my most anticipated games on PSVR, the platform period, are coming over the next 3 months. So I really, really hope that you find a nice little quiet time for your game to release so that we can give it a lot of attention, and so all the cats out there will give it a lot of attention too.
There's no good time to launch a game, we've learned. No matter how quiet you think it's going to be, something massive ends up dropping that same week, and you can't worry about it too much. Like, no matter how much research you do, you can't be on top of every single game release, and there's going to be something you're like, oh man, like that's coming out that same week. Like, God damn it. But that's just the way it is. And I think we're in a unique position. There's not a lot of survival stuff out there in VR, and especially not something that's been, kind of really honed over 4.5 years, more than that maybe. So, we're in a unique position, and I think that anyone who's hungry for this kind of stuff will find time for this, hopefully.
Yeah, no, it's crazy whenever I think of this game and Arashi, Castles of Sin, all these games that are coming out soon that we're excited for. You look back at the PlayStation VR catalog and you say, how did these games not really exist yet? We've had plenty of time for it to happen. So it's great that these indie devs are out there and they're kind of carrying the flag for all these games and experiences that we've been asking for. But so far no one's delivered on. Is that sort of like where Song in the Smoke came from, where you're like, wow, this is a real big genre missing in VR right now?
Actually it's not. The original concept for this game was kind of more of a brawler, with some sort of adventure elements that was going to be very much sort of a next generation take on our original engine, the Galaxy stuff. And right about that time, right when we were Galaxy was pretty deep in production still, and we were kind of thinking about what to do with the next thing. And that's right when the VR stuff started really hitting. We had our first, we kickstarted the original Oculus headset, and as soon as that came in, we started playing with it and hacking with stuff. And I was just floored. I mean, I was just completely blown away. Like, I've always wanted more from my games. I've always wanted to get past, the little window little flat 2D window, and I wanted to be more into the games. I wanted 3D games. I wanted, bigger displays. I wanted whatever I could get. And then when I first put on that VR headset and was right up in there, in that world, like, oh my God, I am inside a video game. This is like Tron, my childhood come to life.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no going back. Like, this is insane. And so we started thinking about how to convert. And this was like before there was much out there, so we were kind of trying to make these plans. We're like, well, what if it was a third person platform? What would that mean? And then we're getting sick, we're trying different stuff, and people are, getting gray in the face and having to sit down all day and like, kind of really figuring out what that meant. And then for a long time, we were doing the teleport only kind of movement. And, we were experimenting with first person stuff, doing some prototypes and things like that. And then we realized, the first person thing works, the teleport thing works. I was playing a lot of Valve's The Lab, and, kind of everything of that first generation of stuff coming out. And, there's definitely no doubt about it. VR, I think, excels most. I mean, it's great for third person stuff as well, but first person, when you are in there, you are the avatar, you are the character, you are in that world. Like, everywhere you look, every direction, like you are inside that world. And for making this world we wanted to make, this beautiful, fantastic sort of, ancient, huge forests and stuff like that, there was no doubt that first person was amazing. And then the more we were testing and playing, everyone's stomachs turned to steel, and now we can run around, and like, I haven't played teleport mode in years now. I still do personally prefer rotate, snap rotate. The smooth rotate still kind of can make me a little seasick, but some of the guys on the team are fine with everything now, and they can just roll through whatever. So we have to kind of keep that in mind. Not everybody has been, spending 5 hours a day in VR for the last 4 years. So we've got a whole suite of, movement options and kind of comfort options, all that kind of stuff, because everyone's different and everyone has kind of their own little formula that they need to be able to play these games. And so, that's also been a huge piece of like, polishing this part and polishing this part. Well, what if it's this component and this component together? How does that work? Well, I don't really need it, but people are going to need it. So let's sit down and focus on this. It's been a massive project, man. This has definitely been the biggest project we've ever done, probably will ever do, just because it was such unknown territory. Plus, we were moving into the Unreal Engine, and we had a bunch of new teammates. It was kind of a first time all working together. It's been an incredible challenge, but I'm very happy that we did it, and it's really come together as well as it has.
So you've been working through and experimenting with different options, and so Song in the Smoke does, I'm assuming then, based on everything you just said, it does have an option for people with a little bit more motion sickness. So you will be able to click, turn, and teleport your way around the world. Yeah,
and you smooth rotate, snap rotate, continuous smooth rotate. You get the blinders, you get the whole kind of suite of standard comfort tools at this point. Yeah.
You had said sort of in passing that now that I've done VR, there's no going back. Does that also apply to 17-bit? Like, will we continue to forge ahead in the VR realm, or are you going to kind of fall back to the things that made you famous?
I don't know yet. The next thing could go either way. It's not first person. I can confirm that much. So we're trying to figure out what that means. I mean, I think it could work as a hybrid. It could work either way. It's going to depend on who we kind of end up signing with and how that works out. Even if we were to go back to kind of a more standard display for the next thing, like, VR is in our future for sure. There's too much cool stuff here. For someone like me who just loves immersive gaming, there's just no comparison, right? Like, it doesn't matter how big your TV is, it's never going to be the same thing. Yeah. And one thing that PSVR kind of taught me, I think, so when the PSVR first came out, and you're kind of like, the Index and the Vive and everything had come out, and I had a whole room in my house all dedicated to full-blown, full motion VR. And I was kind of upset with PSVR's limitations of like, well, you got to sit on the couch, you're kind of stuck there, can't go bouncing around the room. But in time, I found that I really enjoyed the kind of the hybrid VR of kind of like sitting down with a gamepad and sitting on the couch and playing games in my comfortable position where I don't have to worry about punching a hole through the wall. Also, I live in Japan where many of my walls are made of paper. They don't hold up very well against punches. Sitting down and playing like Astrobot to me was like the game of the year, like by a landslide. Like, Astrobot in VR was such a fucking breakthrough. Like, it was so good. And it was so awesome to sit there and be in my pad and just be in that little Disney world. It's like my own little Disneyland. And I was just running around, and I had depth perception, which I have been missing terribly in 3D platformers. I hate how modern 3D platformers ask players to make a bunch of assumptions that they don't really have all the data to deliver on. Like, how far is that jump? You don't really know. Or like, how far is that sword swipe? I don't really know. I can't really tell. I have to kind of just get a gut feeling for it. And all of a sudden, all that was just gone. It was all fixed. And Astrobot just sitting there playing this thing was just like insane. And now every game, I just, even if it's like a 2D game, I'd rather play it in 3D on my couch and just have this like be in the world. And the spatial audio and like everything about it is just better. Like there's just no two ways about it. I tried to get all the PC stuff going where, I was playing, what's that plugin? It's been so long. It's so goofy to get going. I can't even get it going. There's a guy that sells a thing where you can play a lot of PC games and you can kind of shove it into VR mode. So you can play in 3D and you can kind of, get a lot of the advantages of that.
Like Vortex and stuff.
Vortex, that's the one.
Yeah.
But it's such a dog to get going. And like, if you don't have it, you got to like re-ask him for another access code. And I don't know. I spend all day fighting with PCs for development. So the last thing I want to do when I go home at night is like sit in front of my PC and fight with it more. So
sure.
That's what PSVR, gaming is just like plug and play, turn it on, it just works. That's one of the reasons I've kind of moved to the Quest, even though I'm such a I have very high standards when it comes to the visuals in video games. And so obviously the Quest doesn't have the horsepower that the other hardwares do, but like it's just like the iPhone of VR. You just put it on and it just works.
Yep.
And you're just playing and like there's no questions asked. You just take it off. It's just, everything's so clean and it's just so easy. And I think, especially those first couple of years, like the first Oculus Rifts, with the little towers and the lights and the tracking and like the Vive also through all these tracking issues and stuff like that. The more we sort of move past that and the more that stuff becomes history, the better off we're all going to be. So.
Yeah. No, you're speaking my language, man. Like I barely played a flat screen game in the last 5 years, right? I think Returnal was the first flat screen game I'd actually gotten to and been like, whoa, I've been missing out. But at the same time, I'm like, this is great, but I can picture it as a PSVR 2 game.
Can you imagine though? Like, yeah, if you could just sit there on your couch playing that game in the world, in right. HD, with the pad, but with depth perception, with all the spatial audio wins, with just all the 3D, visuals, and like just being in that world would be so much more creepy, be so much more intense. There's just no way that, especially when you're moving into this higher resolution world, that first generation was all the screen door effect and stuff like that was kind of jarring, but the new hardware is just like the headsets are beautiful and everything is so juicy.
Yeah.
I actually had to kind of pause on Half-Life Alyx for a while because I was just so intense. Like you're just like, I'm so tense, like every bullet counts and you're like just like freaking out, going around the corners, and you bump into something. Like I had a plant one time that kind of like scraped the back of my neck one time and I fucking screamed and like freaked out. It's insane, man. Like there's just no way you're going to get that same level of intensity with a flat screen game ever. Like it's just not the same thing. And like I think you're going to just sort of accept the fact that those are just two different worlds. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so thrilled that I just got a cat in the last like 8 months, and I'm so glad I didn't have her when Resident Evil 7, when I was first playing that in VR, because I mean, every single creak or noise or whatever in the hallway would just be like, what's going on? What's happening? Right. And if a cat brushed up against me, I would have lost it. Lost it.
Through the window. You didn't need to. Kitty, I'm sorry.
Exactly. Well, listen, man, before we get too far into this and still not talk about your game, I think we need to talk about your game. And dude, I have read I've read the PlayStation blog over and over and over. That blog post that your producer wrote was amazing. And I saw you obviously on the Upload VR showcase. And man, it's like, and I every single time I see a little bit more about your game. The one thing that I need to know, I feel like hasn't been answered yet. So I'm going to ask you this, and I really hope you can answer it. I want to know how long a typical game lasts. And I know that's sort of a simple question, but like, I want to know if this is more of a survival game where the first time you play it, you die in a couple minutes. And then you go, well, okay, if I do this next time, I won't die. And then the more you play, the longer you last. Or like in 30 days after, like if I start playing this in 30 days, will I still be working off that same initial save file? You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, it is kind of a weird hybrid. You have save games. You can save your game.
Okay.
You've got 3 save slots, and you basically in each there's a bunch of kind of open, like small open worlds, and each one is kind of a self-contained stage. You can go back and forth once you get in there if you want to go get resources, or kind of if you want to step it down a notch. You can go back the way you came. But in each open world, basically, you're given the opportunity to build up to 3 campfires, and so you can only save at kind of a lit campfire. Some of these worlds are pretty big. And so you're going to be sort of strategically planning, like I'm going to try, like there's 3 singing stones basically in each level that you need to find to kind of trigger sort of the appearance of the boss through whatever his sort of unique demands are going to be. And so searching for these stones and kind of exploring the whole map, you're going to want to sort of be pretty proactive about kind of trying to suss out the overall scale of the stage, and then kind of place your camps strategically that you've got somewhere to get home to before dark. Things get pretty ugly after dark in this world. You can stay out, but it's not a great idea, and you pretty much need some sort of light to fight off some of the things in the darkness. And so you go out with torches and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that are only available at night that you kind of have to go looking for through the cover of darkness. But you want to bring a torch or some sort of flame with you or some sort of light with you in order to stay safe. But to answer your question, like what I tend to do is I keep my top tier, my top save slot I save is like, I'm absolutely safe right now. Everything's fine. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a good night. Everything's fine. Second tier is kind of like, well, it's a little sketchy, but I'm going to save now anyway because it's a little scary, whatever. And then I save that lower tier for like, I don't think saving right now is a good idea, but I don't, I also think I should have this backup just in case. But it's not going well for me, and I don't assume I'm going to live through the night, so I'll probably end up going back to that tier 2 save. But yes, you're working on one file, like you're kind of working on a single playthrough through the game. I'm going through the game now and playing it as it was meant to be played through, from beginning to end. And there's still enough bugs and crashes where I'm kind of, getting stuck and kind of having to go back and do things. But like for instance, the other night I was in, I guess it's the 3rd main real stage, which gets real big, and I spent over an hour in it, and I still didn't finish it. And I had my 3 camps settled, and I was just kind of getting ready to pull the boss out and kind of lure him out. And I had a fatal crash, so we're trying to, again, looking through all these things right now. It's the kind of stage where right now, just cleaning this stuff up. But I had an amazing time, and it was a very different thing. And then I went back and started again, and just kind of wanted to, I wanted to do it all in one stretch and see how it went. And just had an absolutely amazing time. And the second game was very different, and it's very intense for different reasons. And yeah, it's great. It's a big game. It's definitely a big game. I mean, minimum probably of 10 hours or so, but I'm assuming more than that. And that would be like if you knew what you were doing and you were kind of powering through it. So I think for new users, I'm actually really interested to see what it's going to look like. But I think it'll take you a while to get through this. It's just a lot to do.
I sense a 12-hour launch day live stream in my near future. Oh, I'm so excited. You mentioned bosses. Can you tell us a little bit more about what kind of bosses? Is there one for each area?
There's one for each zone, yeah. And they all have their own sort of unique triggers and sort of ways, probably the best way through them. I don't want to give away too much, as a lot of it is kind of explained through the game, but you're sort of given information on kind of abstract information and sort of what you need to do to get him to come forth, and probably how to beat him, her, whichever. They're giant animals, it's hard to say. But yeah, it's a very sort of psychedelic experience. There's a lot of questions going on that we hopefully are sort of answered by the end of the game. There's no speaking in the game really, but there's a lot of communication in different ways. So it's a pretty psychedelic experience that is meant to sort of drive a lot of questions and sort of not know exactly what's going on for a while there, but sort of making your way through it, going through these beats and sort of peeling back the mysteries of this world and kind of figuring out what's going on here.
I mean, is there an ultimate goal here? Like, reach the center of the galaxy, something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's absolutely an ultimate target. That it will take you, like I said, quite a while to get through, and to find everything would actually be, quite a feat. So, I expect. It's hard to say. I honestly don't know what to tell you and how long it would take, but I'm gonna guess between 10 and 20 hours minimum. And again, every time you play, it's a different experience. If you camp in a different spot, you're gonna find different things. Things are gonna, they're gonna play out differently. You can play the same stage over and over again. We've play tested some of these earlier stages thousands of times at this point, and it's never the same story twice. Like there's always something crazy that happens, and something cool, interesting happened that you've never seen before. It's because that's just how the game is set up. We have really good AI, and the creatures have their own sort of agendas, and they've got fear levels and hunger levels and exhaustion levels and nervousness levels and all this kind of stuff, and they're kind of reacting to each other, and they're reacting to different cues in the world, and it's just this it's just this massive living jungle to go party in.
That's awesome. I really like that. It does seem like a game about excuse the sirens on my end. It seems like a game about options. And do you upgrade your weapons? Do you decide to set up camp? Do you decide to go out, venture out for the night, or not? How far can you take some of these things? Like if I decide to upgrade a weapon, is there multiple phases of that weapon that I can upgrade, or is it sort of a little bit more realistic?
I mean, it's kind of half and half. Yeah, you can continue to upgrade them as you find new material. Like you'll find new wood types, and you can make better bows and better clubs. By killing animals, you can take some of their teeth and kind of like plug them into your weapons to kind of upgrade them even further. There's quite a bit to it. I think one of the goals that I'm very happy to report has really kind of come through was one of the goals though was to just really set up this world that has a bunch of stuff that needs doing. And we wanted to provide enough of a long-term structure that you never felt aimless. You never felt like, well, I don't really know what I should be doing right now. Like you've always got sort of, you've got a long-term goal that's clearer, and then you've got these medium-term goals that are kind of set for you. But your daily stuff, like your short-term goals, are completely on you. What are your goals right now? Do you want to okay, I want to push forward. I want to go, I want to make a new camp, and I want to kind of have a new forward operating base to kind of scout this new area that I found. So I'm going to make sure I have enough rocks to build a campfire, and maybe I'm going to just, instead of worrying about hunting and drying and like preparing food and stuff like that, maybe I want to kind of just have a bunch of this stuff on me. I want to have a bunch of dried meat, and I want to have a bunch of stuff where I'm not really worried about hunting right now. I have a bunch of arrows. I'm going to sit down and make spend an evening or two kind of getting a bunch of weapons and stuff like that ready to go. And I'm really going to go out and go on a journey. And that's like my goal. Or my goal is I want to reinforce my camp. I want to build up my different camp stations. I want to get some tanning racks going, drying racks, and kind of really work on some new armor. Or like my clothes are kind of falling apart. I want to make some new clothing. Or like it's too cold here. Like I can be out during the day, but at night it starts getting really chilly. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So I'm going to go out and kind of prioritize building some warmer clothing so that I can go out and be more free to spend my time doing the other stuff that I need to do. So this has really come together really well. And it really is nice to be really like, what is my agenda? It's not the game driving this. It's like, what do I feel like doing today? Like, what do I want to do? How do I feel like my time is best spent to achieve some of these short-term goals? And to me, that's really one of the biggest wins of the game. Just like how you feel this intimate relationship with just like the space and what you want to do. You can slow down and take your time if you want. You can, kind of study some of these animals if you want to and kind of learn more about them. You can run around, you can search. There's going to be mysteries that are sort of multi-part things you're going to need to kind of collect some clues from and sort of, spend some effort on that. There's just a lot to it, but it's all engaging and it all works and it all really is player driven at this point. And like I said, we were kind of operating on the hopes that these things would all crystallize and kind of come together in the right manner. And in the last couple of months as we've been playing, like you're seeing these systems really kind of start to gel, and it's like, wow, thank God.
Yeah, it sounds much deeper. All these systems sound much deeper than I initially would have expected when first seeing the first reveal trailer. So that's exciting, mostly because my favorite thing, I don't know if you played Saints and Sinners, but my favorite thing about that game wasn't getting through the story and like doing the stuff the game wanted you to do. It was saying, hey, I'm going to take the next like 30 days of the game and just go out, scavenge, get resources, and like you said, like kind of creating your own goals and things that you wanted to do. And man, it sounds like Song in the Smoke is scratching that exact same itch. The thing that I loved most about about Saints and Sinners seems to be the thing that I can't wait to do in Song in the Smoke. I'm very excited about that.
It's very I love that game too, but it scared the shit out of me. I mean, zombies are scary on a good day on a flat screen TV, but when you're in there, like, okay, go into this house and kill my husband or whatever because he's turned into a zombie, and you're like in this creepy old abandoned house, like it's almost too much for me, man. I mean, like I said, Half-Life Alyx even like just got to me. This world is definitely like, it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful wild landscape, and there's not like the evil in it. I mean, it's just this wild life that yes, they want to eat you, and yes, there are these giant predators, and that's unfortunate, sure. And it definitely, like at night, we really played up the music and the tension. Like when it's getting to be evening, we wanted to really rely on these kind of cues of like, I mean, the whole goal of this game is to kind of like reconnect with like this. I mean, I hate to say nature because it's a VR game, but it's all about the day-night cycles and sort of the life cycles of the world. and kind of trying to connect in this really kind of primitive way. I mean, one of the goals of the game is always to keep the thing simple. It's rocks and it's sticks and stuff like that, where you kind of have an inherent understanding of how these things work. What these things do. You understand building a fire. I love camping, and so a lot of it was like I wanted to actually have to build a campfire, not just like pull the trigger and it's like on. Like you gotta watch it, you gotta maintain it, you gotta make sure you have enough supplies. Just going out as the dusk is starting to come on, just going out and making sure you have enough campfire to keep you through the night on a cold place is intense. And there's a lot of like, well, I want to do this, and I don't have a whole lot of food right now, but if I don't have enough fire to make it through the night, I'm going to be in trouble. So I'm going to really prioritize this thing. But the way we're playing with the light, we're playing with the tension of the music, we're playing with some of the sound cues of things that are coming on as the night comes on. There's this real strong urge to get back to safety. Like as it starts to kind of get into the late afternoon and kind of turning into the evening, you're like, you know what? I just have this sense that I should probably get back to a warm campfire and just sort of bunker down for the night, because this is an intense place. But I get what I'm trying to get at is it's not the same level of, at least during the day. At least there's not this is just overwhelming forebodingness. I mean, it is intense and it is scary, but it's, I guess, that grim, dark future zombie stuff always just so, it's so much when you're in VR. It's so intense. And this has got its own intensity. Like you can build this relationship with these creatures, because a lot of times these fights aren't to the death either. You'll find a lion, you kind of interrupt his territory as you're trying to do your thing, and he's around, and you'll engage with him every once in a while. He'll stalk you, and he doesn't want to do a fair fight. He'll try to kind of come at you from the side. And so there's this intensity. Like you hear branches breaking and stuff like that, and you're like, okay, shit, I know he's out here somewhere. But you can kind of develop this bit of a relationship that kind of goes back and forth, and you guys are going to be in the same space for some time, which is kind of different than a lot of these games where like it's, once the enemy sees you, it's like fight to the death every single time, and like it's always the same sort of outcome. Where a lot of times here, like you guys will both break off and kind of go off and lick your wounds and kind of continue to cohabitate this space. So it's quite of a interesting. I think we haven't seen a lot of games that are kind of treating it like this. I think.
Interesting, very interesting. Well, we've got a lot of questions from some of our viewers. I hope you don't mind taking some time. And
absolutely.
Nice. You mentioned about the 3 different areas of the world, and Hunter over on our Discord asks, how big is the map in Song in the Smoke? So how big is each of the 3 areas, if you can put it in some sort of context?
Yeah, I mean, they're not massive, but they're big enough that, like I said, if you're going to sit down and build a camp, generally you're going to want to have at least a couple camps, because you're going to want to get home before dark. And going all the way across the map, if it's getting into the afternoon, you're having a successful hunt or whatever. Because when you harvest animals that you kill, it takes time. So your time is sort of sped up, and it takes you a couple hours to rip out a giant steak or to skin a deer or whatever.
Interesting.
And so you really got to watch that time, and you need to make sure that you're going to be able to get back to the safety of your campfire by evening.
Sure.
And so just one campfire definitely would not be enough for most of these maps, especially some of the later maps that they get quite a bit bigger. And you just kind of want to have some strategic placement of them just through that scale. Yeah, I don't really have a really simple, easy way to answer that. Sorry.
I'm going to go rogue a little bit here and ask my own question next. But you did talk about how like every time you play is going to be different. And is any of that in relation to the map itself? Like, is there any sort of procedural generation when it comes to the map creation, or are they the same every time you jump in?
The maps are the same. The items that spawn in the world are sort of procedurally assigned. Mm-hmm. And so, sometimes you'll find things that tend to be here, but like some things will be, the combinations will be a little bit different because they're just kind of running these spawner systems. And then the animals are, they have areas they like to be in, but they also have some variety. And the animals can be different on a given day. You might see the lion one day, and the next day maybe the lion's gone, maybe there's a hyena instead, or maybe there's 2 hyenas, so you never quite know what's waiting for you, which was really an important point for me. I didn't want it to be super predictable, and I wanted, like when you're out in nature, like you don't know what you're going to see. You're going to come across some different stuff, and that's going to really affect your your strategies, how you're doing everything, is like what you're up against, and are you willing to engage with this thing, or are you going to try to avoid it? And so that, that coming around a corner and bumping face to face into something scary, there's a real excitement there that we wanted to kind of capitalize on. So, yeah, the spawning and the paths of the creatures, like they've got these different nodes they kind of, travel between on their patrols basically, or they're off, looking for food, whatever they're doing. but it's really unpredictable. So you don't know where you're going to come across them, which leads it to stay this kind of, this live feeling world.
Yeah. Excuse me. I think Belramio is asking if there's, can you be friends with any of the animals? Like, can you create, can you get along with an animal enough to have a pet companion?
No, I mean, if you don't go after a deer and you just kind of let him hang around, he may not be too bothered by you. He might stick around. You can watch him for a while, but no, he's not gonna become your buddy. If you get too close, he's gonna do enough of that.
Rypop says, we've seen a lot of survival games over the years, but where did you get the inspiration from?
Like I said earlier, the idea of building a living, breathing world, and it's like I said in that video, it's something you hear all the time, but this was really like, I want to go to this space and I want to just spend time, and I want to just like be in this world that is alive, and I don't know what's going on, and like dynamic things are happening here. And I really wanted to focus on just the kind of the basics of this simple world. I mean, the whole inspiration, I guess, comes from the idea that when we were thinking about building a virtual world, like if you could build a virtual world that was simple enough that you could sort of understand its systems and you could utilize them, and they could be fairly organic in nature, but you could, in theory, technically survive. You could find enough food, you could find enough firewood, you could make campfires, you could make your own clothes and stuff like that. And even if this is some weird hellscape video game or movie where you got stuck in this world, like you could just continue to survive. These systems are going to allow you to kind of just stay surviving through scavenging, foraging, hunting, all these different things. And so really just this camping simulator, this world simulator, it's not built on a lot of modern, like the complexities of modern life, needing to find the keys for this house, or like sucking the gasoline out of a car. Like going to that level of fidelity wasn't something we were interested in. We wanted to be this very simple world that was kind of organic and just would let you stay alive and just sort of existing in this space. I think that was really the main inspiration. That and my love of nature. I love hiking. I love going to kind of older forests. My friend Bruce Straley, I used to be the director at Naughty Dog. We went down to Yakushima together, which is this island of these old growth forests down kind of very South Japan. And they have some of the biggest trees in the world. They're these huge, massive old trees. And it's where Princess Mononoke was kind of inspired by this place. These massive trees and these marshes and swamps, these big, weird, rocky kind of outcroppings on these hills. And it just feels like such a wild place, and it's just so interesting to be there and to kind of just like, you can almost feel the magic and the spirits of this old world. It's just an absolutely magical place. It was a magical experience, and that just kind of really led into let's create a world like that you can just go into. I mean, I've watched Princess Mononoke 1,000 times, and it's always one of the top sort of visual and sort of thematic inspirations for this world too. So some magic, some mystery. And just a lot of crazy large animals and big trees and raging rivers and massive forests and just this beauty, but also danger.
Nice. I feel like we unintentionally made it to part of the next question. Twitcher asks, so was the decision to go with the cel-shaded design in Song in the Smoke purely an artistic choice, or was it influenced by the limitations of the current hardware? I guess to further that, I'd like to say, if you had the option to make a super realistic VR game, would you have gone in that direction?
No, absolutely. I wanted this to look like an animated film.
Nice.
I'm a huge Frank Frazetta fan, and for years before we even started this project, I was looking at the Frazetta. He was an artist, kind of 60s and 70s, 80s, did a lot of fantasy art. One of the best illustrators of all time, in my opinion. And he would do this thing where, I studied painting and I went to art school, and I'm always interested in kind of, alternate rendering style. And I wanted to do something that looks unique, something that does work on the, the weaker hardware. Going for photorealism with a team of our size is just a fool's errand, and I didn't have any intention of ever doing that. Mm-hmm. But I wanted these details to get lost. I wanted the hot spots to be, well illustrated, and then I wanted these details to fall off. And you look at a Frazetta painting, and like he had these wicked guys, or these, these Amazon queens, or these wicked beasts, or whatever, and their heads and stuff are really well rendered. and then their bodies and their legs and stuff kind of like just drift off into the darkness. And there's almost like no cutoff between where their feet kind of hit the ground. It just kind of goes all into this shadow. And it's so sexy. I just love his juicy rendering style. And I was like, can't we do a game like that that just looks very stylized? It's very silhouette driven. It pops. You know, the details are very obvious, but you can get away with, you know, this kind of much more painterly sort of minimal sort of animation style. And then in hindsight, this was by far the best decision for us to do, because particularly on the Quest, and the PSVR, your levels of data are finite. You know, you can't just do. So when you're in VR, you're right up on stuff, right? You might have this rock that's the size of a mountain, and you're right up on it, and the textures are going to just fall apart. You know, because you just don't have enough texture memory to do like a super HD texture on everything around you. So what we did is we have these normal maps that are kind of tiling, that are working with another set. That we have kind of a local massive normal map for each item. And then we have a smaller local tiling normal map that the lighting data is super clean. So even if you come up right onto it in VR, it's all algorithmic. It's not a texture so much. It's this lighting kind of relationship with the normal map, which allows everything to stay super crisp and super tight. And so it just works out. And even on the Quest, you know, like I said, we've been putting a lot of effort into this because it's, you know, it's pretty much the biggest headset right now. And I'm constantly just like, thank God we went with this, because like you'll come through the darkness and you have these nice silhouettes and the nice smoke, and then you have these kind of hot spots where the sun is coming in. There's like this hyper detail. But just last night I was you know, stalking a lion, or he was stalking me, and I was trying to hide from him, but I was watching him through the bushes, and his feet just disappeared into the ground, and like he had this really nice rendered kind of top half, and then everything else was kind of faded into these milky shadows, and I was like, we did it. The Frazetta thing, it worked out, and I'm just so happy that we nailed this, and I love this style. But it just holds up for you know, a team of our scale. We just don't have the wherewithal to go with super hyper photorealism.
Sure.
Something like this just makes a lot of sense.
I googled Frank Frazetta while you were after you brought him up, and yeah, I mean, you nailed that style as if the trailers are anything to go by. Absolutely, man. So great job on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really, you know, there's so many games these days, and everybody's going for the same thing. Like I watched a bunch of the Xbox stuff this morning, and you know, the Square Enix stuff, and everybody's going for these, you know, these 500-person teams and this photorealism and stuff like that.
Right.
It's tough to stand out though, because they all kind of end up looking the same. And so 17-bit, we've always kind of been proud of trying to come up with a signature look that has, you know, it sticks out, and you can look at it and go, oh, that's that game, you know. And it's not an easy thing to do. And so it's something that we put a lot of effort and time into trying to cook up and having something that's memorable, and it pops, and it really serves the purpose of, you know, whatever that type of game is.
Sure. I mean, it also ages better too. I mean, not that you're terribly concerned with what your game's going to look like in 10 years, but I mean, I went back and played Wind Waker recently, and I'm like blown away by how beautiful that game is. Meanwhile, everything else on the GameCube is kind of like, it's all right, you know?
Yeah, totally. And, you know, that was one of my most amazing, you know, game reveals ever too. I remember when I first saw that for the first time, I was just like, oh my God, this is history in the making. And you're right, it totally holds up. And so another game I worked on Rez years ago when I was at Sega in Tokyo, and you know, that's still coming out. Like it's still, you know, there's the PSVR version, and you know, even the Quest versions and stuff like that, and it still holds up because we designed it to work within its limitations and to stay beautiful, and you know, work then, and it still works now. And I get people all the time are like, wow, that game still looks amazing. Like, yeah, we just, you know, we did a good job of kind of time proofing it and working with something that was minimal, but it worked.
I've been playing Rez since literally when it came out on Dreamcast, and I feel like I played it 7 different ways at this point. But man, nothing was more impactful than when it came to PSVR. Rez Infinite is, I mean, the first time I played it, I was still very, very new to VR. I had to close my eyes for a few seconds just to the overall everything that's pulsating and flashing and moving around you. And I was like, this is so intense. I actually had to close my eyes just because I was like, I can't physically handle it.
Yeah, it was insane.
And I feel like what Rez was always meant to do.
I got to play it with Mizuguchi-san at a hotel room at PAX before they showed it, and I got to sit down with him. And I've known him for years. He's been one of my best friends for, you know, a long, long time. And to be able to sit down and see his vision come to life in VR, because he's always been super progressive about this thing too, getting away from just this, you know, the flat screen, like the single level of interaction. I was in tears when I played it. I was like, dude, this is your vision, this is your dream, this is your goal. You've been talking about for years, and you did it. And oh my God, yeah, it's insane. The funny thing was for me, the relationship with all those. I did a bunch of the enemies and stuff in the game. My relationship with them was on a little computer monitor, usually divided into 4 screens. And so I was dealing with these things about this big, and I'm working on them and I'm doing this stuff. And then I play it in VR and this thing goes by, it's the size of a bus. And I'm like, holy shit, I made that. Look how big it is. It's like blew my mind because the scale, yeah. I mean, that's the thing about VR is the sense of scale is just so much more intense, and it's so much more, human scaled. And I think that's why we wanted to do these massive fuck off trees, in this game. We wanted this just to feel like, yeah, when you go to these places and you see these massive trees, like you can look at a picture and you can look at it in a 2D game and it's like, oh, it's big, but you're like, it doesn't have that, you're like in there and you're like, this thing is, it's massive and I can feel it and I'm there. And it's, I have this human scale that I'm really good at judging because I'm human every day, and this is a very natural way for me to interact with the world. That's why I think VR is so stunning, because it makes the whole relationship so much more intimate, so much more human scaled.
Yeah, agreed. God, I feel like you have thousands of stories throughout the course of the years and all your time in game development. I feel like we could sit down for hours and you'd never fail to entertain. I can only imagine what kind of stories you've got in that brain. 2 more questions before I let you go and continue your day. One comes from my co-host, AJ. He says, what are some cool ways you can die in Song in the Smoke? Are there ways other than just being torn apart by enemies?
Well, you want to count? You can freeze to death.
Oh.
You can poisoned. You can bleed out. You can die of hunger. You can drown. You can be taken by the spirits of the night. I'm sure there's more. Maybe that's it. Those are the big 6.
Can we talk about number 6, taken by the spirits of the night?
I don't want to get too into it, but
okay.
Yeah, nighttime is definitely it's not a time to be out if you're not prepared.
Nice. And then finally, our last question comes from Jay Meow, who says, is there a story? And I know you kind of answered this a little bit, but let's ask it directly. Is there a story in Song in the Smoke?
In a manner of speaking, yes. It's a manner of story. It's a different kind of storytelling. It's a very sort of abstract, minimal type of storytelling. But yes, there are characters. There is a tale being told, a tale of self-discovery, as well as, people trying to kind of communicate with you. It's a very different kind of storytelling. But yes, there is a story.
Okay. Excellent. Well, man, I don't want to hold you up any longer. I absolutely loved sitting here talking about Song in the Smoke. As I told you before we even started the interview, it's one of my most anticipated games coming to PSVR, and we're putting it, right up there with After the Fall and all sorts of games from bigger studios. So I hope that comes across as a compliment. We were very, very excited for this, and I hope we can touch base again after the game comes out and sort of follow up on this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. I always love talking about this stuff, and it's surreal for us. We've been working on this for so long now, and we were so quiet about it for so long. Yeah. And then we just announced, was it this, this past spring with PlayStation and Oculus on the same day. But the fact that it's almost there and it's almost out in people's hands, it's like the beginning of the journey in a lot of ways. And so I'm so excited for people to play it and kind of come back to me and to be able to have these conversations once people have had a chance to really dive in and talk about it. So let's definitely talk again once you've had a chance to kind of get into it. And Absolutely. We'll get you a code as soon as we have something to give out. It's still a little early just yet, but we're almost there. So
sure, appreciate that. All of our, in case you don't know, all the fans, all the people who watch Without Parole are called the Game Cats. And every time I finish the developer interview, I always ask very humbly if you wouldn't mind meowing for all the cats out there.
Meow.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I have a big Maine Coon at home, and he's a nut, so we spend a lot of time talking.
Awesome. Thank you, Jake. I can't wait to talk to you again, and good luck with your launch. Everybody, Song in the Smoke coming summer 2021. Keep it on your wish list. Keep it hot on your radar. It's going to be here soon.
Thank you very much.
イステーション